Everyone in the restaurant froze. Not because a glass had just shattered against the wall, but because of who threw it. Dominic Calloway, the man who ran Chicago's underground with an iron fist, was shaking, not from fear, but from pure, exhausted rage. His 6-month-old son, Leo, had been screaming for 40 minutes straight. The bodyguards were terrified. The manager was sweating through his suit. No one dared to move. No one dared to breathe, until a waitress with tired eyes and a stained apron walked right past the armed guards. She didn't flinch when Dominic's hand went to his holster. She just reached out, took the screaming baby, and whispered 5 words that would change the entire underworld forever. He just needs a mum. The air inside the gilded cage was usually filled with the soft clink of silver against bone china and the low hum of deals being made by the city's elite. But tonight, the air was thick with a terrifying tension. It smelled of expensive cologne, fear, and the piercing, relentless wail of a child who could not be consoled. Table 41 was the center of the universe. It was the best table in the house, secluded in a semi-private alcove with plush velvet banquettes, but tonight it looked more like a war room. Sitting there was Dominic Calloway. In the city of Chicago, names had weight. The mayor had weight. The chief of police had weight. But Dominic Calloway, he had gravity. At 32, he was the head of the Calloway Syndicate, a sprawling empire that controlled everything from the shipping docks on Lake Michigan to the high-stakes poker rings in the Loop. He was a man known for his icy demeanor, his tailored Italian suits that cost more than a Honda Civic, and a ruthlessness that made grown men weep. But right now, Dominic Calloway looked like he was about to break. His dark hair was disheveled, a rare sight for a man who usually looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. His tie was loosened, hanging crookedly around his neck, and in his arms, flailing and turning a dangerous shade of purple, was his 6-month-old son, Leo. "Leo, please!" Dominic gritted out, his voice a low growl that vibrated with exhaustion. "Enough!" The baby didn't care about his father's reputation. Leo arched his back and let out a fresh, ear-splitting shriek that cut through the restaurant like a siren. At the surrounding tables, the city's wealthy patrons, bankers, politicians, socialites, stared down at their plates, pretending they didn't hear a thing. They knew better. You didn't complain when Dominic Calloway's kid was crying. You ate your steak, you drank your wine, and you prayed he didn't make eye contact. "Boss." A large man standing by the pillar shifted uncomfortably. This was Rocco, Dominic's head of security. He had scars on his knuckles and a gun under his jacket, but he looked utterly helpless against the crying infant. "Maybe we should go. The car is out back." Dominic slammed his hand onto the table. The silverware jumped. "And go where, Rocco? Home? To that empty house? He screams there too. He screams everywhere." Dominic's eyes were bloodshot. It had been 3 months since his wife, Sarah, had died in a car accident that everyone knew wasn't an accident. Since that day, Dominic hadn't slept, and neither had Leo. The child was inconsolable, a raw nerve ending left exposed to the world. Just then, the restaurant manager, a nervous little man named Mr. Henderson, approached the table. He was wringing his hand so hard his knuckles were white. Mr. Calloway?" Henderson stammered, his voice trembling. I apologize for the intrusion, but we have received a few complaints from the other guests. The noise. It is disturbing, the ambiance." Dominic slowly turned his head. His eyes were cold, dead sharks swimming in a blue sea. He shifted the screaming baby to his other shoulder, not even trying to soothe him anymore. "The ambiance?" Dominic repeated. the word dripping with sarcasm. "Yes, sir. Perhaps if you could step outside until the little one calms down?" Dominic stood up. He was tall, well over 6 feet, and his presence sucked the oxygen out of the room. Rocco and the 2 other guards by the door tensed, their hands hovering near their waistbands. "You want me to leave?" Dominic asked softly. "I bought this building last week, Henderson. I could burn it down tonight and build a parking lot by morning. Do you want to ask me to leave again?" Henderson turned pale. "No, sir. Of course not. I only meant—" Leo screamed again, a high-pitched, ragged sound that sounded painful. Dominic winced, closing his eyes. The headache behind his temples was blinding. He felt a sudden, crushing wave of hopelessness. He could negotiate multi-million-dollar truces. He could order hits. He could run a city. But he couldn't stop his son from crying. He was failing, the only thing Sarah had left him, and he was failing him. "Get out of my face," Dominic whispered to the manager. Henderson scrambled back, tripping over his own feet. "I can't take this," Dominic muttered to himself, looking down at the red-faced infant. "I don't know what you want, Leo. I don't know what to do." He raised his hand, signaling for the check, ready to give up and retreat to the lonely fortress of his penthouse. "Here," a soft voice cut through the noise. "You're holding him wrong." Dominic stiffened. His guards instantly stepped forward, blocking the path of the intruder. It was a waitress. She wasn't the one assigned to his table. Dominic remembered his server was a terrifyingly efficient man named Claude. This girl looked nothing like Claude. She was young, maybe 24 or 25, with messy brown hair tied back in a rushed bun. Her uniform was slightly too big, and there was a smudge of chocolate sauce on her apron. But it was her eyes that caught him. They were hazel, flecked with gold, and unlike everyone else in the room, unlike the manager, the patrons, even his own guards, they held absolutely no fear. "Step back," Rocco barked, moving to intercept her. Tables closed. The waitress didn't even look at the bodyguard. Her eyes were locked on the screaming baby. "He's got gas, and he's overstimulated," she said, her voice calm and level, cutting through the panic in the air. "And he can feel your stress. You're holding him like he's a bomb about to go off. He's a baby, not Siofo." Dominic stared at her. No one spoke to him like that. Not ever. "Excuse me?" Dominic said, his voice dropping an octave. "Do you know who I am?" "I know you're a guy with a screaming kid who's about to pop a blood vessel," she shot back. She stepped around Rocco before the big man could register her movement. She walked right up to Dominic Calloway, entering the kill zone that most assassins couldn't breach. "Give him to me," she said. It wasn't a request, it was a command. Dominic should have pushed her away. He should have let Rocco drag her out the back door. But something in her face, an exhaustion that mirrored his own, a raw honesty, made him pause. He was desperate. Slowly, hesitantly, the most dangerous man in Chicago handed his son to a waitress whose name tag simply read Harper. The transfer was awkward. Dominic's muscles were coiled tight, reluctant to let go, but Harper's hands were steady. She took the weight of the child effortlessly, adjusting her grip instantly. Instead of holding him out or cradling him loosely, she pulled him tight against her chest, tucking his head under her chin. She shifted her stance, swaying her hips in a rhythmic, almost hypnotic motion, while her hand rubbed firm circles on Leo's small back. "Shh," she hummed, a low, vibrating sound from her chest. "It's okay. You're okay. The scary noise is gone." Leo let out one last, strangled sob. He gasped for air, his little chest heaving against hers. And then, silence. The restaurant fell deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that hurts your ears. Dominic stood there, his arms feeling strangely empty, his mouth slightly open. He watched as the waitress, Harper, closed her eyes, ignoring the 100 pairs of eyes watching her. She just kept swaying, patting the baby's back with a confident rhythm. Thump, thump, rub. Thump, thump, rub. Within 30 seconds, Leo's breathing evened out. His little fist, which had been clenched in rage for an hour, slowly uncurled and grabbed onto the fabric of Harper's cheap polyester uniform. He let out a long, shuddering sigh and rested his cheek against her shoulder. Dominic felt a lump form in his throat. He hadn't seen Leo this calm since Sarah. "How did you do that?" Dominic whispered, the aggression completely drained from his voice. Harper opened her eyes. She looked down at the baby, a sad, soft smile playing on her lips. She didn't look at Dominic with the reverence or fear he was used to. She looked at him with pity. "He's lonely," Harper said softly. She looked up at Dominic. "I can smell the formula on him. No breast milk." "His mother passed away," Dominic said. The words usually felt like broken glass in his mouth, but saying them to her felt necessary. Harper's expression softened even more. She stepped closer, violating his personal space again. But this time, Dominic didn't flinch. She adjusted the blanket around Leo's legs. "He misses the heartbeat," she said. "When you hold him like a sack of potatoes, he feels exposed. He needs to be tight against the chest. He needs to hear a heart beating to remind him of her." She looked down at Leo, brushing a tear from the baby's cheek with her thumb. "He doesn't need a new toy or a bodyguard or a fancy dinner, Mr. Calloway," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "He just needs a mum." The words hit Dominic harder than a bullet. He felt the air leave his lungs. He just needs a mum. He looked at this woman, this stranger. She was wearing scuffed sneakers. Her hair was a mess. She probably made in a month what he spent on a bottle of wine. And yet, she was holding the most precious thing in his world. And for the first time in months, there was peace. "What is your name?" Dominic asked. "Harper," she said. "Harper Evans." "Harper." He tested the name. It sounded solid, real. "You're good with kids. You have your own?" A shadow passed over Harper's face. Brief, painful, and then gone. "I helped raise my little brother," she said evasively. "Look, Mr. Calloway, I should get back to work. My manager is glaring at me, and table 6 needs their appetizers." She moved to hand Leo back. As soon as she shifted the baby away from her body, Leo's face scrunched up. A whimper started in his throat. Dominic panicked. He didn't want the noise back. He didn't want the pain back. "Wait," Dominic said, raising a hand. Harper paused. "Sir?" Dominic looked at Rocco, then at the terrified manager hovering in the distance, and finally back at Harper. His mind, usually calculating odds and profit margins, made a snap decision. A reckless, stupid, desperate decision. "Quit," Dominic said. Harper blinked. "Excuse me?" "Quit your job," Dominic stated, his voice regaining its authority. "Right now, drop the apron." Harper let out a dry, incredulous laugh. "I can't just quit. I have rent. I have bills. Unlike you, I don't own the building." Dominic reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He pulled out a checkbook. He didn't carry cash. Cash was for low-level street runners. He uncapped a gold fountain pen. "How much do you make here?" he asked. $2,000 a month? 3? "That's none of your business," Harper snapped, though she pulled Leo back against her chest to stop his whimpering. "And I'm not a charity case." "I'm not offering charity," Dominic said, scribbling on the check. He tore it out and held it up. "I'm offering a job." Harper looked at the check. Her eyes widened. It was for $10,000. "That's a signing bonus," Dominic said calmly. "I need a nanny. The agency sent me 3 experts with degrees in child psychology. Leo screamed at all of them. He likes you. I don't care about your resume. I care that my son is sleeping. Harper looked from the check to Dominic, and then down to the baby. Leo was fast asleep now, drooling slightly on her shoulder. You want me to be a nanny for a mob boss? Harper whispered, hissed. I read the papers, Mr. Calloway. I know who you are. People around you. They tend to get hurt. Dominic took a step closer. The air between them crackled. People around me are the safest people in Chicago, Harper, because I kill anyone who touches them. He held the check out closer to her. Come live at the estate, room and board included, $5,000 a week. You look after Leo. That's it. You save him. You save me. Harper hesitated. She looked around the restaurant. She hated this job. She hated the manager who docked her pay for being 5 minutes late. She hated the ache in her feet, and she desperately needed the money. Her brother Toby was in trouble, real trouble, and her waitress tips weren't going to cut it. She looked at Leo. He looked so innocent, so fragile in the arms of such a violent world. $5,000 a week? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Cash? Tax-free if you want, Dominic said. Harper took a deep breath. She looked at the manager, who was making a cutthroat gesture at her from across the room. She reached out and took the check. Hold him while I get my purse, she said. Dominic smirked. It was the first time he had smiled in 3 months. Rocco, he barked, go get Ms. Evans' purse and tell the manager she resigns, effective immediately. The drive to the Calloway estate was silent. Harper sat in the back of the armored Cadillac Escalade, Leo still asleep in her arms. The leather seats were softer than her bed at home. She watched the city blur by, the neon lights of downtown fading into the dark, winding roads of the wealthy northern suburbs. She felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. What had she just done? She had just sold her soul to the devil, because the devil had a cute kid and a checkbook. We're here, Rocco grunted from the driver's seat. The gates to the estate were massive, wrought iron, twisted into the shapes of wolves and vines. They swung open silently. The driveway was a 1/4 mile long, lined with ancient oak trees. The house itself was a monstrosity of stone and glass. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress. Cameras swept every angle. Men in dark suits patrolled the perimeter with Dobermans on thick chain leashes. Welcome to hell, Harper muttered to herself. It's not hell, Dominic said. She hadn't realized he was listening. He was looking at her from the seat opposite, his gaze intense. It's the safest place on earth, as long as you're inside the walls. The car stopped. A valet opened the door. Rocco will show you to the nursery, Dominic said, stepping out and adjusting his suit jacket. The vulnerability from the restaurant was gone. The wolf was back. Get him settled. I have a meeting in the library. Don't come out of the East Wing tonight. Wait, Harper said, scrambling out of the car with Leo. That's it? Go to your room. What about rules? What about my stuff? Rocco will handle your stuff. We'll send a team to your apartment to pack your things, Dominic said dismissively, walking toward the massive front doors. Whoa! Hold on! Harper shouted. Dominic stopped and his back stiffened. The guards by the door looked shocked that she raised her voice. You don't send a team to my apartment, Harper said firmly. I have a roommate. I have a life. You can't just erase me. Dominic turned slowly. You work for me now, Harper. Your life is here. But fine, you can go back tomorrow with a guard to collect your things. Tonight, you stay with Leo. If he wakes up, I want you there. Not a security guard. You. He turned and disappeared into the house. Harper let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She looked down at Leo. He stirred, opening sleepy blue eyes. He looked up at her and let out a small coo. "Looks like it's just you and me, kid," she whispered. Rocco cleared his throat. "This way, Miss Evans." The inside of the house was cold. Beautiful, but cold. Marble floors, high ceilings, expensive art that looked like it belonged in a museum, not a home. There were no family photos, no toys on the floor. It was sterile. Rocco led her up a grand staircase to the east wing. The nursery was larger than Harper's entire apartment. It was filled with every expensive toy imaginable: electric cars, giant stuffed giraffes, a crib made of mahogany. But it felt lonely. "Bathroom is through there. Your room is connecting." Rocco pointed to a door. "Boss's room is down the hall. Don't go there." "Got it," Harper said. "Rocco, right?" "Yeah." "Is he always like that?" Rocco looked at the door, then back at Harper. His hard face softened just a fraction. "Since the missus died." "Yeah. He's worse. The kid reminds him of her. He can barely look at him sometimes. You did a good thing tonight. Just don't make him regret hiring you. The boss doesn't do second chances." Rocco left, closing the door with a heavy click. Harper was alone. She laid Leo down in the crib. He fussed for a second, but she placed her hand on his chest, humming the same tune from the restaurant. He drifted off. She walked into the adjoining room. Her room. It was luxurious, with a king-sized bed and a balcony overlooking the grounds. But as she walked to the window, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Down in the driveway, a second black SUV had just pulled up. 3 men got out. They were dragging a 4th man between them. The man was hooded, his hands zip-tied behind his back. Dominic walked out to meet them. He had a glass of whiskey in one hand. He said something to the men. The hooded man fell to his knees, pleading. Harper gasped and stepped back from the window, her heart hammering against her ribs. Dominic looked up. Even from 2 stories down, in the dark, she felt like he looked right at her. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just turned back to the man on his knees. Harper yanked the curtains shut, her hands shaking. This wasn't just a job. She was in the belly of the beast, and she had a feeling that keeping Leo quiet was going to be the easiest part of her new life. The first week at the Calloway estate was a blur of rigid schedules and silent corridors. Harper quickly learned the rhythm of the house. The mornings were for the staff, maids who scurried like mice, terrified of being seen. The afternoons were for business, which meant strange men in expensive suits coming and going from Dominic's study, voices raised, sometimes the sound of glass breaking. And the nights were for the ghosts. Harper rarely saw Dominic. He was a shadow in his own home. He would leave before Leo woke up and return long after the house was dark. But Leo was thriving. Under Harper's care, the constant screaming had stopped. She replaced the rigid, scheduled feedings with on-demand comfort. She threw out the stiff, formal baby clothes Dominic had ordered and dressed Leo in soft cotton onesies she'd bought at Target with her own money. She played music, the Beatles, Motown, not the classical Mozart the previous nannies insisted on. Leo laughed for the first time on a Tuesday. It was a bubbly, wet sound that echoed in the empty nursery. Harper had been blowing raspberries on his tummy. She didn't realize Dominic was watching. He was standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame, his tie undone, a glass of scotch in his hand. He looked exhausted, the dark circles under his eyes deeper than ever. "He sounds like her," Dominic said. His voice was rough, like gravel. Harper jumped, pulling Leo's shirt down. I didn't hear you come in, Mr. Calloway." Dominic walked into the room. The air instantly felt heavier. He looked at his son, really looked at him, for the first time in days. Leo kicked his legs, smiling up at his father, drool bubbling at his lips. Sarah had that laugh, Dominic said quietly. It used to fill the whole house. Now, he gestured vaguely at the silent mansion. Now it's a tomb. It doesn't have to be, Harper said boldly. She picked Leo up and held him out to Dominic. Dominic recoiled slightly. No, I've been drinking. I shouldn't. You had one drink. You're not drunk, Harper challenged. He knows who you are, you know. He tracks you with his eyes when you're in the room. Dominic hesitated, then set his glass down on the changing table. He took his son. His large, calloused hands that Harper knew had done terrible things, were gentle. Leo instantly grabbed Dominic's nose. For a second, the mask slipped. Dominic Calloway, the monster of Chicago, smiled. It was a genuine, boyish smile that transformed his face. You're getting heavy, kid, Dominic murmured. He's eating better, Harper said, watching them. He likes the sweet potatoes, hates the peas. Dominic looked at Harper. The intensity of his gaze made her cheeks flush. You're good with him. Better than I expected. I told you, Harper said, looking away. He just needed someone to listen. And what about you, Harper? Dominic asked, his voice dropping. He took a step closer to her, Leo still in his arms. Who listens to you? Harper felt a sudden spike of panic. I'm fine. I just do my job. Do you? Dominic's eyes narrowed. Rocco ran a background check on you. Standard procedure. Harper's heart stopped. She forced herself to breathe. And it's clean. Too clean, Dominic said. Harper Evans, high school in Ohio, community college, waitressing gigs, no parking tickets, no debts, no ex-boyfriends. You're a ghost, Harper. People who are that clean usually have the most to hide. Harper met his gaze, lifting her chin. Maybe I'm just boring, Mr. Calloway. Maybe, Dominic said. He leaned in, close enough that she could smell the scotch and expensive tobacco on him. Or maybe you're running from something. I know the look. I see it in the mirror every morning. Before Harper could answer, a loud crash came from downstairs. Dominic's demeanor changed instantly. The father vanished. The boss returned. He handed Leo back to Harper in one smooth motion. Stay here, he ordered. Lock the door. Do not open it unless you hear my voice or Rocco's. He pulled a handgun from the holster at the small of his back, a movement so casual it terrified her, and disappeared into the hallway. Harper locked the door. Her hands were shaking. She pressed her ear against the wood. Downstairs there was shouting. You think you can just walk in here? Dominic's voice roared. I'm family, Dom. You can't shut me out forever. Another voice. Drunk. Angry. You're not family. You're a liability. Dominic shouted back. Get him out of here. There was the sound of a scuffle, a thud, and then the heavy front door slamming. Harper sank to the floor, clutching Leo. She knew that voice. The other voice. It was Julian Calloway, Dominic's younger brother, the black sheep, the one the papers said was in rehab in Switzerland. But Harper knew him from somewhere else. She closed her eyes, a memory flashing in her mind. A dark alley behind a club, flashing lights, her brother Toby's face, beaten and bloody, and Julian Calloway laughing as he kicked him. He's here, she thought. He's the reason I'm here. She hadn't told Dominic the truth. She wasn't just a waitress. She was a woman on a mission. Her brother Toby owed $50,000 to the Calloway syndicate, specifically to Julian's crew. They had threatened to kill him by Christmas. Harper had taken the job at the Gilded Cage because she knew Dominic ate there. She had planned to beg, to plead, maybe even to steal something valuable to pay the debt. But now she was inside, and she was realizing that the monster wasn't Dominic. It was the brother he was trying to protect the world from. 2 weeks passed. The incident with Julian was never mentioned. Dominic was away on business in New York, leaving Harper alone with Leo and the staff. The estate felt safer without Dominic there, but also emptier. Harper found herself missing their late-night talks in the kitchen. She'd found him there one night at 3 a.m., eating cold pizza. They'd talked for an hour about nothing. Movies, the best pizza in Chicago, why Leo had weird toes. For a mob boss, he was surprisingly human when the armor came off. But Sunday morning shattered the peace. Harper was in the garden with Leo. It was a rare, warm day in October. She was sitting on a blanket, reading a book while Leo chewed on a plastic key ring. Cute kid. Harper froze. She looked up. Standing at the edge of the rose garden was a man. He looked like Dominic, but sharper, crueler. His hair was lighter, his smile wider but empty. He wore a suit that was too flashy, bright blue with a silk scarf. Julian Calloway. "I don't think you're allowed to be here," Harper said, scooping Leo up instinctively. Julian laughed. He walked onto the grass, crushing the flowers under his Italian loafers. "Allowed? This is my house, darling. I grew up here. Dominic just occupies it." He stared at Leo with a look that made Harper's skin crawl. It wasn't affection. It was assessment, like he was looking at a pawn on a chessboard. "So this is the heir," Julian sneered. "The little prince." "He's a baby," Harper said, standing up and backing away. "Leave us alone." "And you must be the magic nanny." Julian stepped closer, blocking her path to the house. "I heard about you. Dominic's little stray. You know, he has a habit of picking up broken things. Sarah was broken too. Look how that turned out." "Don't talk about her," Harper snapped. "Touchy," Julian smirked. "You know, you look familiar. Have we met?" Harper's heart hammered. If he recognized her, if he connected her to Toby. "I have a common face," she said, clutching Leo tighter. "No," Julian tilted his head. "I don't forget faces, especially pretty ones." He reached out and touched a lock of her hair. Harper slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me." Julian's face darkened. For a second, he looked exactly like the man who had beaten her brother. "You have fire. I like that. Dominic likes ice. He likes obedient little dolls. But I bet you're not obedient, are you?" "Rocco!" Harper screamed. Julian laughed. "Rocco is at the gate. Dominic is in New York. There's no one here but us, sweetie." He lunged for her. Harper didn't think. She reacted. She spun around, shielding Leo with her body, and kicked backward. Her heel connected with Julian's shin. He howled in pain and stumbled back. "You bitch!" Harper ran. She sprinted toward the house, clutching the heavy baby against her chest. She burst through the French doors into the kitchen, locking them behind her. She grabbed the kitchen phone and dialed the one number she had memorized, Dominic's private line. He answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" He knew. He always knew when it was the emergency line. "Julian," Harper gasped. "He's here, in the garden. He tried to grab me. He was looking at Leo." There was a silence on the other end, so cold it froze the phone line. "Is the door locked?" Dominic asked. His voice was terrifyingly calm. "Yes, I'm in the kitchen." "Go to the safe room in the basement. Rocco is on his way. I'm 10 minutes out. I took the helicopter." You're coming back?" "Harper," Dominic said, and his voice broke slightly. "If he touches a hair on either of your heads, I will burn this city to the ground. Go, hide, now!" When Dominic arrived, it was like a hurricane hitting the estate. Harper was huddled in the safe room, a reinforced steel bunker behind the wine cellar, rocking a crying Leo. She heard the heavy thuds of footsteps upstairs, shouting, something smashing, then silence. The wheel on the safe room door spun. Harper flinched, pulling Leo back into the corner. The door swung open. It was Dominic. He looked wild. His suit jacket was gone, his white shirt sleeves rolled up, and there was blood on his knuckles. Not his blood. He saw them in the corner and let out a breath that sounded like a sob. He crossed the room in 2 strides and fell to his knees in front of them. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his hands hovering over her but not touching, as if afraid he might break her. "Did he touch you?" I kicked him." Harper managed a weak laugh. "I think I bruised his shin." Dominic stared at her for a second, and then he laughed. It was a jagged, hysterical sound. "You kicked him?" "He was trying to touch my hair. I panicked." Dominic closed his eyes. He leaned his forehead against hers. It was an intimate gesture, one that crossed every line of employer and employee. Harper felt the heat of him, the trembling of his body after the adrenaline dump. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I thought I lost you both. I thought I was too late." "You weren't," Harper whispered back. "We're okay." Dominic pulled back. His eyes were intense, searching hers. "He won't come back. I made sure of it." Harper didn't ask what that meant. She didn't want to know. "Dominic," she said, using his first name for the first time. "Why does he hate you so much?" Dominic sat back against the steel wall, pulling one knee up. He looked tired. "Because our father chose me. Julian wanted the chair. He wanted the power. But he's unstable. He enjoys the violence. I do it because it's necessary. He does it because it's fun." He looked at Leo, who was chewing on Dominic's watch. "When Sarah died, the brakes on her car were cut," Dominic said, his voice devoid of emotion. "The police ruled it an accident. But I know it was him. But I couldn't prove it. And in our world, you can't kill a made man, your own brother, without proof. The commission would have my head." Harper gasped. "He killed his own sister-in-law?" "He wanted to break me," Dominic said. "He thought if he took her, I'd fall apart. And I did. Until," he looked at Harper, "until the waitress." The air in the small room shifted. It became charged, electric. "You saved me, Harper," Dominic said. He reached out and cupped her cheek. His thumb brushed over her skin. "I was drowning. You pulled me out." Harper's heart raced. She leaned into his touch. She wanted to kiss him. God, she wanted to kiss him. But then the image of Toby's beaten face flashed in her mind. "You're lying to him," a voice in her head whispered. "You're here for the money. You're here to pay off Julian." She pulled away sharply. I should get Leo to bed," she stammered, standing up. "He's missed his nap." Dominic looked confused, hurt flashing in his eyes. He dropped his hand. "Right, of course." He stood up and opened the door for her. "Harper," he said as she passed. She stopped, not turning around. "Whatever it is you're hiding," he said softly, "whatever you're running from, you can tell me. I can fix it." Harper closed her eyes, tears pricking her lashes. "Good night, Mr. Calloway." She walked away, her heart breaking with every step. She knew she was running out of time. Julian knew her face now. He would figure out who she was. And when he did, he wouldn't just come for her. He would use her to destroy Dominic. She had to leave. She had to take the money she'd saved, pay off the debt, and disappear. But as she laid Leo down in his crib, watching his peaceful face, she knew she couldn't. She was in love with the father. She loved the son. She was trapped. The phone call came at 2:08 a.m. Harper was awake, staring at the ceiling, the guilt of her secret eating a hole in her stomach. The nursery monitor hummed softly on her nightstand, the rhythmic sound of Leo's breathing usually a comfort. But tonight it sounded like a countdown. Her cell phone buzzed against the wood. Unknown caller. Harper's blood ran cold. She knew. Before she even picked it up, she knew. She swiped answer, her hand trembling. "Hello? Harper, please! Don't let them—" The voice was cut off by a wet, sickening thud. "Toby!" Harper screamed, sitting bolt upright. "Toby! He's a bleeder, your brother." Julian Calloway's voice purred through the speaker. It was smooth, amused, and utterly terrifying. 2 broken ribs, maybe a fractured orbital bone. But he's still pretty. "What do you want?" Harper hissed, tears instantly springing to her eyes. "I'm getting the money. I have almost half." "I don't want money, darling," Julian interrupted. "I have money. I want leverage. I want the crown jewels." Harper stopped breathing. "No. Bring me the boy," Julian said. "The old shipping yards. Dock 4. You have 1 hour. You come alone. You bring the baby. I give you your brother. If you tell Dominic, if I see even one of his guards, Toby dies, and I'll send you the video." The line went dead. Harper sat in the dark, the silence of the house pressing in on her. She felt like she was drowning. She had to choose. Her brother, the only family she had left, the boy who had protected her from their abusive father when they were kids, or Leo, the innocent baby who had captured her heart, and Dominic, the man who had given her a home. She stood up. She moved like a robot. She threw on jeans and a sweater. She walked into the nursery. Leo was sleeping on his back, his arms thrown up over his head in total surrender. He trusted her. He was safe here. "I can't do it," she thought, a sob catching in her throat. "I can't give him to a monster." But she couldn't let Toby die. She looked at the baby monitor. Then she looked at the door to the hallway. Harper made a choice. It was the hardest thing she had ever done. She didn't pick up the baby. She walked out of the nursery, down the long, shadowed hallway, past the sleeping guards, and stopped in front of the master bedroom. She didn't knock. She pushed the door open. Dominic was awake. He was sitting in an armchair by the fireplace, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring into the dying embers. He looked up, his hand instantly going to the gun on the table next to him before he realized it was her. "Harper!" He frowned, seeing her pale face and the tears streaming down her cheeks. "What's wrong? Is it Leo?" Harper walked into the room and fell to her knees at his feet. "He has Toby," she choked out. Dominic stiffened. Who? Who has who?" "Julian," Harper sobbed. "He has my brother. He's going to kill him. I owe him money. That's why I took the job. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Dominic's face turned to stone. He set the glass down slowly. "You lied to me." "Yes." "You came here to spy on me." "No, I came here to pay a debt. But then I met Leo. And I met you." Harper looked up at him, her eyes pleading. "He wants Leo, Dominic. He told me to bring Leo to the docks in exchange for Toby. He said if I tell you, he'll kill my brother." The room was silent for 10 agonizing seconds. Dominic looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the terror, the grief, and the truth. She could have taken the baby. She could have run. But she came to him. "You didn't take him," Dominic said softly. "It wasn't a question. I would never," Harper whispered. "I would rather die." Dominic stood up. The exhaustion vanished from his frame. The predator was awake. He reached down and pulled Harper to her feet. He didn't shake her. He didn't hit her. He pulled her into his chest, his arms wrapping around her like iron bands. "You did the right thing," he said into her hair. "You came to me." "He's going to kill Toby," Harper wept against his shirt. "No," Dominic said, pulling back and looking into her eyes. His gaze was terrifyingly intense. Tonight, my brother learns the most important lesson of the family. You don't touch what's mine. He walked to the bedside table and pressed a button on a small intercom. Rocco, wake the boys. We're going hunting. The docks. The wind off Lake Michigan was like a knife. The shipping yard was a graveyard of rusted metal and rotting wood. Under the yellow glare of a single floodlight, a black van was parked. Julian Calloway leaned against the hood, smoking a cigarette. Two of his thugs were holding a figure on his knees in the snow. Toby. His face was a mess of blood and bruises, one eye swollen shut. "She's late," one of the thugs grumbled. "She'll come," Julian smirked, flicking ash onto the snow. "She's a sister. Blood calls to blood." Headlights cut through the darkness. A single car approached slowly. It was one of the estate's SUVs. It stopped 50 yards away. The driver's door opened. Harper stepped out. She was wearing her heavy winter coat. In her arms she clutched a bundle wrapped in a thick blue blanket. "Told you," Julian laughed. "Bring him here." Harper walked forward. Her legs felt like lead. She was shaking, but she kept her chin up. She stopped 10 feet from Julian. "Let him go," she yelled over the wind. Julian pushed off the car. He walked over to Toby, grabbed him by the hair, and yanked his head back. Toby groaned. "Product first," Julian said. "Let me see my nephew." Harper stepped closer. She looked at Toby. "I'm sorry, Toby," she whispered. "Don't!" Toby rasped, blood bubbling on his lips. "Harper, run!" Harper looked at Julian. Her eyes were hard. "You promised." "I did," Julian smiled. "Hand him over." Harper held out the bundle. Julian reached out, his eyes gleaming with triumph. He snatched the blanket from her arms. He looked down, pulling the fabric back to see the face of the heir to the Calloway empire. But there was no baby. There was a brick, and a stick of dynamite with a red, flashing light. Julian's eyes widened. "What the—" Click. The floodlights around the shipping yard exploded, plunging the dock into darkness. "Drop it!" Harper screamed, diving into the snow toward her brother. Julian threw the bundle as hard as he could. Boom! The dynamite was a flash bang. It detonated in mid-air, a blinding white light and a deafening concussion that knocked everyone off their feet. From the shadows of the shipping containers, hell broke loose. Silenced gunfire thwip-thwip-thwip cut through the air. The two thugs holding Toby dropped before they could even draw their weapons. Dominic Calloway stepped out from behind a rusted crane, an assault rifle in his hands. He moved with lethal precision. Rocco and 4 other guards fanned out behind him. Julian scrambled up, blinded and deafened, stumbling toward his van. "It's over, Julian," Dominic's voice boomed, carrying over the wind. Julian pulled a handgun from his coat and fired blindly into the dark. Bang! Bang! A bullet sparked off the concrete inches from Harper's head as she covered Toby's body with her own. Dominic didn't flinch. He walked forward, ignoring the wild shots. He aimed. He fired once. The bullet took Julian in the shoulder. He spun around and fell against the grill of the van, dropping his gun. Dominic signaled. Rocco moved in, securing the area. Dominic walked up to his brother. Julian was clutching his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. He looked up at Dominic, his face twisted in hate. "You," Julian spat. "You didn't have the guts to kill me before. You won't do it now. I'm family." Dominic stood over him. He looked like the angel of death. "You killed Sarah," Dominic said. It wasn't a question anymore. He saw it in Julian's eyes, the fear, the guilt. "She was in the way," Julian screamed, his composure breaking. "She made you soft. You were supposed to be a king, Dominic, and you were playing house." "She made me a man," Dominic said quietly. Something you'll never be. Dominic raised the rifle. Dominic, wait! It was Harper. She had dragged Toby to safety behind a crate and was now standing up. Dominic didn't look away from his brother. Stay back, Harper. Don't do it for him, Harper yelled, running over. She grabbed Dominic's arm. Don't do it in front of me. Don't let this be the last thing I see of you. Dominic looked at her. The rage in his eyes was terrifying, but as he looked at her face, the face of the woman who had saved his son, and now saved him, it cooled. He lowered the rifle. Julian let out a hysterical laugh. See? I told you. Soft. You need a woman to tell you what to do. Dominic looked at Rocco. He's right. I won't kill him. Julian grinned. Smart move, brother. Rocco, Dominic said, turning his back on Julian. Call the commission. Tell them we have a confession for Sarah's murder. And tell the cops we have an anonymous tip about a drug shipment in this van. Julian's smile vanished. What? No. Dominic, kill me. Just kill me. In their world, prison was death. But worse, it was a slow, humiliating death. And the commission? They would skin him alive for killing a spouse. You're not family, Dominic said, taking Harper's hand. You're just a memory. He walked Harper away, leaving his brother screaming in the snow as the sirens began to wail in the distance. The garden of the Calloway estate was in full bloom. The roses, once neglected, were vibrant red and pink. A toddler with messy dark hair was sprinting across the grass on unsteady legs, chasing a golden retriever puppy. Leo! Careful! Harper laughed, jogging after him. She caught him just before he tripped over a sprinkler head. She swung him up into the air. Leo shrieked with delight. Mama! Up, up! I got you, you little monster! She kissed his cheek. Is he terrorizing the dog again? Dominic walked out onto the patio. He looked different. The lines of stress around his eyes had softened. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing jeans and a black t-shirt. He looked younger. He looked happy. The dog started it. Harper grinned, turning to face him. Dominic walked over, wrapping his arms around both of them. He kissed Harper deeply, a lingering kiss that made her toes curl, even after a year. Toby called, Dominic said, resting his chin on her shoulder. He got into the architecture program at OSU. He says thank you for the tuition. He's a good kid, Harper said. He just needed a chance. We all did, Dominic whispered. He looked at Leo, who was squirming to get down. Dominic set his son down, and Leo immediately waddled off toward the flowers. You know, Dominic said, pulling Harper closer. I was thinking. Dangerous, Harper teased. I was thinking that Leo might need a sibling. Someone to help him chase the dog. Harper smiled, her heart swelling so big she thought it might burst. She looked at the man who had been a monster to the world, but a savior to her. I think, Harper said, leaning her head on his chest, listening to the steady, strong beat of his heart. That sounds like a perfect idea. From the restaurant chaos to the quiet of the garden, they had walked through fire, and they had come out the other side, not burned, but forged. Because the waitress was right. He didn't need a bodyguard. He didn't need a toy. He just needed a mum. And Dominic just needed her. And that is the story of how a single, shattered wine glass and a brave waitress changed the fate of the Chicago underworld. It reminds us that even in the darkest hearts, love can find a way to bloom, and that sometimes family isn't the blood in your veins, but the people who stand by you when the gun is pointed at your head. Dominic Calloway thought he was building an empire, but Harper Evans taught him that the only kingdom worth ruling is a home filled with love. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this Mafia romance, and want to see more stories about unexpected love, dangerous twists and happy endings, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. We post new dramatic stories every week. What did you think of Harper's decision at the docks? Would you have told Dominic the truth? Let me know in the comments below. See you in the next story.